Football fans, welcome to another edition of Down and Out with our very own Dr. David Chao, brought to you by Bet Parks as we bring you the latest injury updates from around the NFL. And Doc, an ugly scene last night in Cincinnati. Let's get right to it. Tua Tagovailoa gets thrown to the ground. Really a difficult situation to even have to watch on television. He's posturing on the field. Just what did you see last night in Cincinnati?
Well, you're absolutely correct, Rich, right? There's posturing, which means all this extra electrical signal. It looks very scary, right? But the good news is when the posturing doesn't last long, it does not mean long-term damage. It does not necessarily make it a worse concussion. Of course, all concussions are not good. And when he got carted off, I was like, well, the neck's going to be okay. So certainly his neck from whiplash can be sore. But we got early word that he's moving extremities. And look, no concussion is good. Obviously, the question is, should he have played? And that's looking back in retrospect. And the investigation is ongoing.
Walk me through the posturing. We see a lot of players take a shot to the head, have some type of concussion-like symptoms. But to me, at least, Doc, it seems rare that we see a player that actually is the posturing takes place. Does that make it a more significant type of an injury? Why do we see posturing?
All concussions are significant. The bottom line is, when you do have the posturing, it does happen. We remember Donald Parham of the Chargers being stretchered off with that similar posturing. It's very scary looking. So you could call it a pseudo seizure. It's not really that. And it's very scary. But the good news is it does not indicate a bleed in the brain. Obviously, he got discharged and flew home with the team. Something to follow. And the key for when he returns is, of course, how long the symptoms last, right?
I always, when in doubt, I always throw this question out. If it were your son. So, Doc, based on what you saw on Sunday, down in Miami with a quarterback stumbling from the field, looking like there was clearly some issues as it relates to the head and neck area. And then we fast forward to what happened last night where we see him stretchered from the field. If it were your son, what would you recommend?
Well, if it were anyone's son in real time on Sunday, I tweeted out, that's a visual sign of concussion. They're ruled out. Doesn't matter what else happens, as we talked about on Monday. Now, but I wasn't in the room. Like if a doctor looked and said, no, I'm sure it's the back, and we talked about the first quarterback sneak where he hyperextended the back, that's the only time where you would let someone back in, right? I get the when in doubt, keep them out. Let the story come out. Here's my suggestion, Rich. What's more important? Getting clarification on a referee call at the end of the game or getting clarification on Tua at the end of the game. I've been advocating for a while, since last year. Remember Davante Adams got the wind knocked out of him on the ground for 2 minutes, came back after 90 seconds in the concussion blue tent, missed one play only, and they said it was wind. Don't you want to hear from the red hat, the UNC, the neuro specialist? A pool reporter gets to talk to the head referee and ask some questions. Why can't a pool reporter talk to the UNC and get the story straight so we don't have to hear it secondhand from reporters? Is it more believable from the team, the player, a reporter, or directly from the doctor? And HIPAA can be waived there, and we talk about injuries all the time. If a player doesn't want the doctor to speak, they can stop it. But the NFL should allow that process. Transparency is a good thing, especially if you don't have anything to hide. And that's what the NFL is saying. So provide the transparency for the fans. That's my suggestion.
How difficult is it to protect a player from himself? I mean, we know how tough
we talked about it earlier, right? I mean,
we know how competitive he is. But Doc, I mean, Sunday he gets a nasty blow to the head. Fast forward to last night, he gets thrown on his head again. I mean, can't we keep him out? At some point, can we sit him down for a week and let him heal up a little bit, or do we just throw him out there again?
Absolutely. When in doubt, you should keep him out. Okay. But the doctors do have a very difficult job. I used to say we're asked, and I didn't do primary concussion evaluations. I was an orthopedist. I was the head guy, but I was ultimately responsible. When in doubt, keep him out. But doctors are asked to judge the temperature of the porridge. Is it 1 degree too hot, 1 degree too cold, right? You take a player out who could have stayed and the player complained. You take a player out and you should have kept him in. It's a very tight line. And you're asked to judge that in retrospect. What was the temperature an hour ago or a day ago of that porridge, right? Because you always look back, and hindsight is 2020. Look, I had an incident once where my primary care team physician came to me, said, I rule out this player. I won't say the name of the player. And he's a big guy, defensive guy. And he was pissed. Honestly, the doctor came to me from the locker room and says, I told him he's ruled out and he has to stay in the locker room, and he's mad at me. Literally, I think he wants to slug me. I'm like, well, you're doing your job. He won't. And, security, this, that, the other. So it's a very fine line. But yes, absolutely. This is what I'm saying. This is a bad look for the NFL. Why don't you just have them explain it on Sunday? And then people can see the process better. The UNC might be able to come up with some good medical reasons that even I'm not seeing why they felt comfortable clearing Tua on Sunday, right? And this would decrease the controversy. If you got nothing to hide, why not be transparent?
All right, we go from concussions to high ankle sprains. Let's talk about a couple players who are dealing with high ankle sprains. Obviously, Trent Williams and Mac Jones. And I heard somewhere, Doc, that with a high ankle sprain like Mac Jones, there's two ways to treat it. One of them requires a surgical procedure. Walk us through that.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not against this tightrope surgery that has been a lot of Alabama players have gotten. First of all, I don't think Mac Jones is going to get that surgery because they're continuing the day-to-day narrative. He was in the building and he says, don't doubt me. So maybe the surgery's off the table. But high ankle surgery, that tightrope surgery, is not a bad surgery. But the narrative that it speeds healing is incorrect. All it does is stabilize the ankle and allow for healing. But you can get that by a cast or non-weight bearing. The most famous example is actually Tua. Tua in the SEC championship game had a high ankle sprain. But if you look at the details, and ESPN reported on it, he suffered a left high ankle sprain in the first quarter, continued to play until the fourth quarter, left the game with a right inversion ankle sprain, walked off the field, and then had surgery on his left high ankle and played again in the national championship game in 4 weeks. Is that the same ankle injury as Mac Jones, who hopped off the field? I mean, it's just not the same high ankle injury. I'm not saying the surgery was bad or unnecessary, but that's why we don't always see that surgery in the NFL. The tightrope is not magic. It's not a bad surgery. It's not magic. That's all I'm going to say on that.
All right. It seems like every week we're talking about Christian McCaffrey in Carolina, and it's, he's had a very difficult time staying on the field, Doc. A lot of it's been soft tissue injuries. He's dealing with a quad injury right now. What did you see there?
Well, we haven't seen much because there was no video, but he was DNP, and LP today. And so he's going to be questionable. When he hit the first DNP, people were saying, he always rests Wednesday. I'm like, nah, I don't know. Here's the thing. I'm iffy on him playing, or certainly limited snaps. The last 2 years, he's returned early, like from his hamstring, and then been out longer. Like fool me once, fool me twice kind of thing, shame on you, shame on me situation. I think the team and or Christian McCaffrey might play the long game here and be a little bit careful. And who can blame them after the last 2 seasons?
Well, one team that's really banged up is your former team, the Chargers. You look at their left tackle, Rashawn Slater. He has a torn bicep. Also, Joey Bosa dealing with a groin. That may require surgery. Just an update on those two players, Doc.
Yeah, Rashawn Slater is going to have distal bicep surgery. His season isn't done. He could come back for playoffs. So we'll see if the Chargers are there. Joey Bosa is having this core muscle surgery. Same one his younger brother Nick had that ended his Ohio State season prematurely, and he missed the rest of the season. Joey can come back, but it's going to be late season for him. And, Keenan Allen might have re-aggravated his hamstring, left practice early. J.C. Jackson might still be dubious, their number one corner that they signed as a free agent. The only sliver of good news is Justin Herbert was, quote, full practice. But as you know, Rich, the definition of full practice is he did everything we asked him to do. The question is, what did they ask him to do? It's inconceivable that that cartilage rib fracture is behind him now just because it's barely 2 weeks. That's just not conceivable.
All right, last one, Doc. We have the Saints and Vikings in London this weekend. Saints injury report not good. Jameis Winston hasn't practiced all week. Michael Thomas has already been ruled out.
Yeah, Jameis Winston's doubtful, and statistically, historically, over time, doubtful is about a 1% chance of playing, at most 2. So you can pretty much say it's Andy Dalton. Michael Thomas is out. Jarvis Landry is questionable, which is why ahead, in Sick Picks at Sports Injury Central early on in the week, we figured Dalvin Cook would play. We saw the iffiness coming on these key guys, and we said jump on Minnesota there. And the line was 3 at the time, and who knows where it's going now.
Well, you have another edition of Down and Out with our very own Dr. David Chao, brought to you by Bet Parks. Enjoy the games this weekend, and good luck.
Thanks.
Thanks, Doc.